good amount of attendees. My name is Jocelyn Scudder. I'm the Executive Director of the Arts Council for Park City and Summit County. Welcome to our Project ABC Community Convening. Today, we are talking about arts and rural placekeeping. And so this is a program, Community Convenings are a program that we do regularly since 2018, since the launch of our cultural plan that is a county-wide cultural plan called Project ABC. So really quickly, I just wanted to do some welcomes and let you know, if you guys are unfamiliar with the Arts Council, we are an independent nonprofit organization here in the county. We are the local arts agency as designated by the state for both Summit County and Park City. That makes our organization really unique. We do our 4 core areas of work are marketing, programming, we do advocacy and planning, and we also support the Summit County Public Art Program. Our mission is to serve our arts and culture community by driving creative programming, providing valuable resources, and cultivating connections. And we really do envision a community where arts and culture is critical, a community where creatives can thrive, and a community where all people connect through the arts. And so this is one of the programs where we love to invite people from either across the state or the Western United States to talk about other communities, how they're successfully implementing arts and culture as a tool for community development. And so we're thrilled to have our guest speakers today, and Jake will introduce them in a little bit. Selfish little plug, I did want to let you know that we have a current program on Park City's Main Street right now called Create PC if you are interested. This is an opportunity to support Summit County artists. We have artists represented in Create PC. It's a pop-up gallery from all over the county. And so they are selling artwork, and we are popped up on Main Street for the month through March 31st. So if you're interested in supporting local art or just wanting to check it out and see what our local creative talent looks like, please come visit us at 544 Main Street in Park City and head to Create PC. And then lastly, before I pass it off, you know, if this work energizes you, if you're really interested in arts and community development, you know, we're kind of in this exploration phase with our community and trying to find stakeholders that believe in this work and care about it and get excited about it. If you are, please reach out to us. You know, we need to make sure that all of our work is community driven and community informed. So if this is something that interests you, please email me, jocelyn@pcscarts.org. You can also find that on our website, pcscarts.org. You can reach out to Jake. Some of you might already know him, because this is the opportunity for us to come together, you know, form thought partnerships and work collaboratively as we explore what arts and culture looks like throughout our county. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Jake McIntyre. He is a consultant for the Arts Council, has been since 2017, is that right? And has been, you know, kind of the leader of our Project ABC Cultural Plan, and he's going to talk a little bit more about this work.
Yeah, hi everybody. So as Jocelyn said, I'm Jake McIntyre. I know many of you, but also see some new names here. So I'm just going to do a quick additional introduction to today and give you a couple of kind of logistic details and then pass to our presenters. So as Jocelyn said, these events are really about looking at the collective priorities from the Project ABC plan that came out in 2018. And we pick those from those priorities, and we look to other communities to find ways in which they're doing great work in that same priority area. So today's really focused on the priority of places, which is about geography, is about how arts and culture kind of spreads throughout Summit County, is about how arts and culture is connected to this idea of place. So this idea of kind of rural placekeeping and the role of arts and culture throughout our rural county is absolutely tied very deeply to this idea of place that came up in the Project ABC plan. If you have no idea what we're talking about when we say Project ABC, there's a website up for the project, which is Project ABC SC for summitcounty.com. And all the information, including the full plan and everything, is there. Quick meeting logistics. So we will have 2 presentations. The first from Kim Konikow, who's the Executive Director of the North Dakota Council on the Arts. And then there will be some time after she presents for some questions with her. And then Lenise Peterman, who is the mayor of Helper, Utah, will come on right around 9:30 and do her presentation again with some time for questions. And then right around 10 o'clock, we're going to switch to doing something a little new that we haven't done in one of these events before, but we're going to be doing a roundtable discussion. We have a great group of Summit County artists, arts advocates, general supporters, government representatives, all kinds of folks who are going to kind of take over, and we're going to have a really nice conversation about how the ideas presented from Kim and Lenise resonate and are relevant to Summit County, but also talk about some of the great arts and culture work happening and some of the opportunities to continue exploring. So stick around for that portion as well. That'll go until right about 11. So with that, I am going to pass to Kim Konikow, again, the Executive Director of the North Dakota Council on the Arts. And Kim, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, a small intro thing that I didn't prep you for, but I'm really curious if you could, as you start, just give us a sense for what home for you looks like in North Dakota. What is the community where you live? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Does it have any particular sounds or smells that remind you of it? Help us kind of root in your place. And I know you're statewide, but you can choose the whole state or you can choose right where your home is. And then I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm pretty passionate about arts in rural communities. So to introduce, I guess I should say, I came to North Dakota from Utah. I spent 18 years in southern Utah, down in Rockville, Springdale area, worked with the Washington County Arts Council, and I loved Utah. So coming here was first of all a bit of a shock. And what has made it home, interestingly enough, is the expanse of sunrises and sunsets. Being so used to having the Zion Mountains around me, the Zion area, it's very interesting to see the sun not reflected against a rock, but wide open skies. The things about North Dakota that make it home are the strange blend of immigrants that have settled here. German, Russian, Irish, Norwegian, Swedish, Icelandic, Native American whose land we're on. It's been a very interesting mix, and I would have to say that home for me is the arts in North Dakota. And we're not necessarily known for our artists, but I think where we really shine is in our cultural heritage. All of those people that did come here brought with them an amazing array of cultural heritage in the crafts and in the maker arena. And that is really what helps me feel grounded here, is knowing that those traditions have been passed on for generations. I'm going to kind of move right in to the Arts Council. So we are a state arts agency. And when I first got here, one of the things that I realized pretty quickly is that what we did was give out grants. And our grants range in size from $1,250 up to $11,000, beyond what we were able to give out for CARES funding this year, which were much higher grants. But with 10 grant programs that service elders and students and community groups and in rural populations and in city populations. But what I realized very shortly is there were a great number of people who really didn't know that an arts council in the state existed. A lot of that was happening in rural communities. And in my second year, I started to drive around the state and talk to our current grantees and start to have meetings by connecting with the Governor's Main Street initiative. So that initiative is statewide, and its goals, among many, are to build healthy, vibrant communities. And for me, I saw that as a way for the arts to be more recognizable in the state. So by traveling with them to their meetings in many communities, we were able to get on the agenda and talk about arts and culture and how important they were to developing community and economic development and being healthy and vibrant, especially in the downtowns. I'm going to share my screen very quickly, maybe. And I'm sure it's here. Oh, there it is. It was below it. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to just show you our webpage. This is the landing of our North Dakota Council on the Arts webpage. And the thing that we just have started to focus on is this creative placemaking program in the middle. We actually have just renamed the program from Creative Placemaking Joining North Dakota's 8 regions to, I'm going to tell you the new name of it. It's now called Arts Across the Prairie Placemaking in Rural North Dakota. So for us, and I'm not going to show you the actual page yet because we're still working on it, but for us, what you get on our page is a little bit about us, the grants that we give out, how to get involved. There's a news section, all the different programs that we offer, and then a lot of resources. So what I noticed when I got here is that North Dakotans have a very, very, very strong work ethic, which is about do good work, put your head down and go forward. So there was a lack of sharing and communication between individuals and arts groups. And for me, at the Arts Council, we want to do more than just give out grants. We want to be a partner. We want to be in the smaller rural communities. We want more people involved in what we do. We want to help with economic development. We want to help make those partnership connections. So as I went out and we started to shift through our strategic plan, that's really what we focused on. And I had a vision in the middle of the night that we started by calling it creative placemaking, but that was the kind of program that could literally bring people together. So in doing that, one of the things that we did was to, I came up with this idea of how do we join the 8 regions of the state together. And I'm frantically looking behind you just to see if I can, there, I got it. So now I know which one to share next. Okay, so what we did was we put together the Creative Placemaking Initiative. And again, now as I've changed the name, this fact sheet was made just last fall. But it is the first of its kind as a statewide program. And the idea is that we would connect within each of the 8 regions a stakeholder group, and that the stakeholders had to be a very diverse representation of who lives in that region. I'm going to show you a region map in a minute. But the idea would be that within each region, the stakeholder group would talk about what it meant to put up a public artwork. So my rules, in quotes, for them were that they had to work together across county lines, that they had to jointly come up with a location that was rural in that region, and that they then had to agree on what the tenets would be for what the artwork might look like, knowing that public artwork can be anything. So we have a fact sheet. I'm happy to send this on to people also. This was another work that we had, we have a fact sheet where we just talk about what each region will do. We in fact have hired a coordinator for the program who comes from the AmeriCorps. She's an AmeriCorps member, and she does not necessarily live in Bismarck near the State Arts Council. She's out in the state, but we've just brought her on board, and she is now going to be responsible for coordinating the program. And in a way, we thought it was better to not have one of the staff do it, on top of which we have a very small staff and couldn't manage it. But she will be able to move through the state and go to each community and help get things set up. The next thing I want to show you is just the regions of North Dakota, maybe. We'll see if I can do this. Okay. So this is North Dakota. It's a, excuse my French, it's a big ass state. It's really large. So there are 8 regions. Nobody actually knows why there are 8 regions or what they do, but that's how they've been divided up. It started with a governor and it followed through, and now many other state agencies use these. Our first program is over here in the Tri-County Region 1, over in the northwest corner of the state. So above this map is Canada. Yes, it's cold here. That's not one of the things I consider homey about North Dakota are the winters. But what's interesting is within these 3 counties of this one region, there is a vast difference of population and economic opportunity. So when the oil boom hit, it was in this county. And that county received a huge influx of temporary workers and people who moved there. And it was just, the population went from a very, very low number into the I would say probably one area has hit over 20,000, which may not seem big by Utah standards, but for North Dakota, we still don't have 1 million in population. So that was large. And the 3 counties at first started talking about, no, we should have it in McKenzie County. No, we should have it in Williston because that's the largest city. So again, my rule was, you have to put it in a rural location. I don't care where you put it, but it can't be in a city. And the 3 counties have to work together so that you can come up with something that is related to place making, place keeping that represents you. The thing that is so interesting is that they've been meeting for a year now. And in this past year, they've had a lot of really great discussions about what makes up the people of this region. How did they get here? What affected them? What were the commonalities? What were the differences? And it wasn't until they brought in 3 historians, one of them a Native American woman, and they started to talk about the stories of the settlers and the land, that they came together to start to realize that they could choose a site in that area that would be interesting, attractive, but much more about the region and the place, what draws those 3 communities together. If you look, say, in the Lewis and Clark region 7, which is where Bismarck is, down in sort of the center, I mean, that's got a lot of counties. I'm curious to see, as we move from the north, where there are 3 counties, the next program will be over in the Northeast Red River region, and that's got 4 counties, but then you can see how it starts to explode with counties, how we will bring everybody together. Now, stop. Okay, so that is kind of a look at it. The thing that I think that is sort of remarkable about the placemaking program is that it does involve a really diverse group of people who care passionately about where they live, who want to shine a light on it, who really had to overcome the differences of thinking that just what they had was special, and really tried to think about what did economic development mean in that region. We have an amazing partnership with the Department of Transportation. Again, I think this is going to be a first statewide. And what's so remarkable about it is that, that there is no public transportation in North Dakota. There are a few of the larger cities have some bus systems, but there certainly is not a lot going on. So we are partnering with them, and the Department of Transportation is going to handle the once we choose the locale, they will handle the parking lot, the walkway, the signage. We're working with tourism in a way that will draw those 8 sites together in a kind of a little tour that we can say you get to the one in Region 1, we can say, oh, go stop by this little coffee shop, or check out this other installation or mural that's happening nearby, so that it will draw development to the community, but it's not necessarily about having people move in per se, this particular program. It's near and dear to my heart. This is kind of the program that I feel will help put North Dakota on the map. It's a very friendly place, but it's not a very welcoming place. And some of those cultural heritage, the cultures that come with it are kind of about being alone. And what we're trying to do is to open up between the counties, cross-county work, then cross-regional work, and really work on professional development and technical assistance and webinars, and really train people in how to do budgets and how to raise funds, and also then how to do an RFP to artists that they can help understand how they talk about their region and what they're looking for there. The other thing that I want to share with you very quickly is, okay, there is up in the Region 4, which is the northeast region of the state. So in that region, there's a number of murals that are being put in Pembina County, and it's connecting the communities within one county. And they've been really focused on rural economic development, but involved in this program are the schools who help design the images that go on the walls. The community is involved because they help to select those images through a publicized vote. The businesses assist with donations of paint and related items, and the Chamber of Commerce is involved by helping this come to fruition. We also help by small grants we have through a special projects program. The thing that's super nice about that program is that it is within that region, counties coming together so that, again, they get people to move through the area, not necessarily move there, but visit that area. But it helps a lot with the downtowns, with people working together, with raising funds together. And I think the last thing that I wanted to share with you was there's just, when we think about public art, we have to remember that public art can be anything. It can be a mural, it can be a mosaic piece, it can be benches, it can be a walkway, it can be a sundial, it can be an annual event in a certain place that happens. And a quick share on this is just a very wonderful little, see if I can make this a little bigger. This is a fun thing about new rules about the public art, about that it doesn't have to be forever. Create a community around creating work. You know, don't embellish, interrupt, welcome outsiders. Don't waste time on definitions, but really try to create something that is about your community, your history, your geography, working together as partners, placekeeping, working with all the different people that are there. And I will say on our stakeholder program for Region 1, there's the most diverse group that I didn't even know existed. Because again, when you think about North Dakota, we are pretty darn white up here. But there are people who have moved here. There are Native Americans, there are Asians, there are Latinos, there are people in high powered positions, and there's artists and there's educators, and everyone needs to come together around what's important to your area. I'm going to shut up now because I realize that if you have questions, I would love to be able to answer them.
Thanks, Kim. That was awesome. I love it. And we could probably listen to you in about arts in North Dakota for a long time, because I think that, at least personally, I found a lot of intersections.
When I think about my time in Utah, I know these tenants work. And so it's definitely transferable, and I'd be happy to share more information further on.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, so does anyone, whether you're an attendee or even if you're a fellow panelist, have questions for Kim about her presentation? If so, you can put those questions in the Q&A, or if you're a panelist, you can go ahead and put them in the chat feature if you have questions. Jake, do you have any questions for Kim?
No, I don't necessarily have any questions. Well, I could have come up with one, but I like Dan's question better. So Dan Compton just dropped in a question. Hearing these two different terms of placekeeping and placemaking, and I have my thoughts about what those differences are, but Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe how you see differences there? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Placekeeping is kind of becoming a little bit newer word that's thrown around, and I think there's related ideas and there's differences too.
I think, oh, I love that somebody asked if they could have access to my presentation notes. Only if you've recorded it, because I never write anything down. So
we are recording.
If you recorded it, then you can have access to my presentation. Yeah, you know, public art is kind of where public art started and kind of became a hot thing. And public art has now been kind of classified as, you have money, you have a place in mind, you build something on a plaza that works well because whoever's paying for it wanted something there that represented this or that. And then it turned into placemaking, because I think people really felt, well, what about community involvement? How do you really involve the community in the process? And so therefore it's looking at different tenets about what that public art may be. So now we're talking about public works, or you know, placemaking as, how do we define a place by the community coming together to create something versus it just being paid for and plopped down on a plaza in the city or something like that. But then placekeeping really started to become the catchphrase recently, as we started to look at more Native cultures and the land that we're on, and how we really pay respect to them and how we interact with them. With those cultures that were here before us, the cultures that are currently there, the communities that are there. So I think they're interchangeable, but I think placekeeping is probably where it will end up as people become more aware of what it can do.
I love that, Kim. And I don't know who I was talking about this with, but, you know, when the phrase placemaking, it almost implies that that, you know, these people who work in arts and culture are coming in and making a place vibrant. And maybe that might be the case, but it also, I could see someone who lives in a community getting offended by that word, because it's like,
Right.
wait, I'm saying that my place isn't already made. And I feel like the word placekeeping honors the fact that arts and culture really can be used as a tool to retain, you know, you're retaining your culture and your heritage, and we're highlighting it through creative activities and public art programming. But it's really just bringing culture and community to the forefront. You're not recreating anything. You're just highlighting it. So I think it's a way to honor the fact that these places do have, they all are incredibly special. And so, and I just think it's a more effective way of describing that to community members.
And you know, the last thing I just want to say, and I don't want to run into Lenise's time here, but the last thing I want to say is that the goal of each region is to celebrate the cultural heritage that exists there. So our 8 regions have very different people living in them. So it's going to be interesting to see within the counties how they bring those together to talk more about the land and the settlers and the history.
Nice.
That's great. Well, we will continue this conversation as we get into the roundtable, because I think this idea is really core to some of what I had in mind for us to think about in the roundtable. So we'll have plenty of time to dive into that a little bit deeper. Thank you, Kim. That was wonderful. It's amazing to see this kind of regional approach to public art as a connective tissue that really works throughout the state. I am going to pass to Lenise Peterman now. If you weren't on earlier in the meeting, Lenise is the mayor of Helper, Utah, and has just done absolutely amazing work in Helper. I won't steal any of her thunder in telling you about that work. I'll let her do it, but it's truly inspiring. Before you start, though, Lenise, I'm going to ask you to maybe think about the same question that I gave Kim, which is just help us kind of ground in your community of Helper. What does it look like, feel like, smell like, sound like? What makes it home for you? And then from there, we'll let you go, and that should take us right about 10 o'clock.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like Kim gave you a really big picture scenario with the work that she's accomplishing statewide, whereas in Helper, you'll get more of a micro look at a rural community who is trying hard to create some sustainability. And when I think of Helper, it's really about, we're the beginning of the book cliffs. If you're familiar with any kind of geology, it's a bunch of cliffs that look like books have been stacked upon them. And that is the longest book cliff in the United States. I believe it runs for about 250 miles. And we're right at the mouth of the Price Canyon. So when you come down through from Salt Lake, you get this really nice expanse of where we are, and it's incredibly rural. We have about 2,100 citizens, and we're really, I love the look and the feel of things that we've been able to accomplish in really re-energizing our main street, exercising our natural assets that are at our doorsteps. It's a walking community. You can walk end to end, in 30, 40 minutes. So it's really about being home, and the people are just amazing. They are warm, they are friendly, they are welcoming. And, I invite you all to come down and visit Helper. It's home. So with that, I'd like to share a PowerPoint that I've put together. You can bear with me. Whoops. Can you all see that, Jake?
I cannot. Let's try that again.
Yeah. Can you grab it, or what do I need to do?
Go ahead and try to share screen one more time, and if it doesn't work, I can do it on my end.
Okay, let me do that real quick. You gotta love Zoom. So There we go. I think I've got it now, Jake.
Yep, looks great.
Perfect. Okay, sorry about that, folks. As I said just a minute ago, in Helper, we're all about building sustainability. And, you know, we are well on our way, and it's taken us a few years to get our feet underneath us. And I consider it a true work in process. And I always want to define what sustainability means. So it's not just, well, so you're sustainable. What is that? It means we have to replenish our human capital. We have an aging citizen population. So we want to be attractive to young families. We want to have excellent schools. We want to have a quality of life and recreational amenities that attract young families to our community. We need to develop economic diversification. So we need to bring in industry and balance that with other things and activities going on in our community, and taking care of and maximizing all of these wonderful natural assets. You know, you can choose to go down to Moab along with a million other folks and recreate, but really there's great recreation closer and just as good, excuse me, with less people. So we're really trying to maximize that. And I think the key thing for Helper has been valuing each other's strength to create momentum. So if you were here in 2012, most of the buildings were abandoned on our main street. They were not in use. And today it's a completely different picture. So I'd like to share a little bit of the history of Helper. It's named Helper after the Helper engines that were used to pull the heavy coal loads up the canyon. So by our name and our nature, we're pretty much helpers. So it was a true melting pot of Utah. There were 27 languages spoken on our main street at the turn of the century. Heavy labor needs were required for the coal mining, for the railroading industries, and the community has a real blue-collar grit to it, rolling up your sleeves, getting involved, making things happen, just because these are tough-minded people. They know tough times, and they can get through them. So I think that sort of sets the stage for what we've been able to accomplish and where we're going. So we knew we needed to change the paradigm. We had to embrace a different future for our community because coal mining is, you know, on the downhill. It has been for a number of years, really since the 1990s. And having just a single economic driver really put the community in a bad position. So when that started to take its downturn, it impacted all of the community. You know, it wasn't just you out of a job, it was everyone on your street out of a job. So that decline continued, as I said, until about 2015. And at that point, the Carbon County power plant closed, which was right at the mouth of the canyon. If you've ever traveled Highway 6, you can probably remember turning and seeing this big plant lit up. That's been taken back to its original state of environment. So that was yet another blow. So we were fortunate. We secured a Sustainable Design Assessment Team grant in 2017. And that really opened the eyes of the community to what assets we have and how we can create sustainability. And one of my key tenets has been we can continue to react to things happening to us, or we can determine what we want to happen and take charge of that and take action and move towards things, and not just, you know, wait with bated breath for the next thing to happen to us. So we've been really strong in building positive proximity, and I really want to talk strongly about that, where we've built community bridges through projects. In the 1990s, we were fortunate in that a bunch of University of Utah art professors stumbled on Helper. These are renowned artists, Paul Davis, David Dornan, John Erickson, and they bought a building on Main Street for nothing. to be honest, because there was nothing happening on Main Street. And what they did was they brought their students down during the summers for workshops. And then those students in turn were like, hey, I can focus here, I can work here, it's cheaper to live here. And they started buying up other Main Street properties, and they started creating working studios. So as we had this, entourage of artists entering the community, you can imagine it was a bit offsetting to a bunch of coal miners. And to that end, what we've been able to accomplish is building bridges where we can begin to value each other's strengths, and artists aren't seen as intruders, and our tough grit blue collar people are seen with value as well. So one of the first projects we undertook was Main Street. From our assessment by the AIA, they said you need to beautify your Main Street. And what we did was we created a process by which anyone could contribute a design to the Main Street. And it was so wonderful because you had artists designing, you had people, school teachers designing. And as we did this, the designs collapsed. The school teachers started working with the artist, and so did the shop owner on Main Street. And so they collaborated and came up with a design that was then voted on by the community. But the key thing is the community had to deliver it. We didn't have the money to make the design just happen. We were able to secure some funding through a one-time allocation from the Appropriations Committee. But to exercise the whole design, we had to basically double that. And we did that with artists working side by side with the community. We built our Main Street over the course of 9 weekends through volunteers. So we would do these great volunteer call outs, and people would show up and get dirty, put down weed barrier, plant. We cut rock. You'll see later that we filled up that steel structure with flat rock and poured concrete for benches. So it wasn't just instilling ownership, it was a matter of pride. And the artists were forefront in this effort, and they got to work side by side with the retired coal miners. And one of the wonderful things about Main Street that you see, that's actually Ben Still, if you are familiar with him, he's a well-known artist. We put in language plaques calling back to our 27 languages spoken at the turn of the century, saying welcome friends in each one of those languages. So that was like the finishing touch that the community really embraced. Again, we're continuing with restoration, neon, facades, murals are going up. I love the 27 diverse colors. That's a big call out to our history. And murals populate our Main Street up and down, and more coming online because people see it, they get excited. And it's something the community is embracing, as well as the artists delivering those murals to us. So it's been really exciting to see that bridge come together, valuing each other's strengths, and that together we can do more than the artists could have done on their own, or the blue collar coal miner could have accomplished. We also exercise a lot of higher ed. Again, this comes down to dollars and cents. So we actually went to USU's architecture program in Logan and said, hey, we've done this beautiful design on our Main Street, but it doesn't encompass all of Main Street. Can you work with us to develop a master design plan? And students came down en masse and came back actually a number of times on their own to work on things, and delivered this amazing plan to the city, and that encompassed more than the Main Street design. So that's a case of being smart, leveraging dollars to get a professional product that we would have probably paid $60,000, $70,000 for, that we couldn't afford, that now we have in our pocket, and can execute projects from that plan. And actually, to their credit, they received an honor award for their analysis and planning as a student body, a student class for the work that they did for Helper. We also saw astrotourism as a key component to put us more on the cutting edge of a tourism destination type location. So we were the second community certified in Utah as a dark sky community. We worked with the University of Utah and their Dark Scholars program to make that come to fruition. They come down yearly, they do light studies with new students, they built their own drones, they give us reports. So it's been really cool to establish, again, these strategic relationships that can move a rural community forward without attaching expenditures to what it is we're trying to accomplish and getting to the professional end that we're trying to achieve. Wayfinding signage, this was basically a USU architecture design. We adopted a Carbon County branding strategy, including fonts, palettes, logos, and we're trying to do that because as a rural community, we know we can't stand on our own, and other communities are going to adopt this similar wayfinding signage for their communities because we want our guests to know when you're in our community, our county, when you see this type of sign, there's something going on there that might be of interest to you. So by doing that throughout the county, we'll be able to leverage each other, because if you come to Helper, I can keep you busy for a day or two. I can't keep you probably busy for 4 days, but within Carbon County we can, and we want to exercise those visits and encourage people who are visiting to stay and expend money and see all of the things that we have to collectively offer. We also had the same billboards for the last 20 years. And we were able to actually leverage some donations and grant money to update billboards. And we're trying to focus on our iconic historic Main Street to attract people. This is a shot of it. And actually, even some of the buildings in this picture are going through renovation and restoration, and they're going to look different in 2 months. So we're excited to share that Main Street, as well as we wanted to do a tie between our coal mining history, our railroading history, and our artists, because the artists are the way we can embrace the future. So we thought this was really quite a smart little thing, you know, where coal meets canvas. We're talking about all of the things that we think make Helper unique, and it's talking about our past and our future, all in one quick snapshot that you can consume as you're driving down Highway 6 and coming out of the canyon. Christmastown lighting. Helper has the title of Utah's Christmastown, and we had all kind of Christmas lighting that was provided by the city in all sorts of different stages of disrepair and hung maybe not as professionally as we would like. So we were able to get some grant funding and really highlight the architecture of the Main Street doing that. And it's crazy what something like that will run you, but we spent about $38,000 on that, having lights redone and professionally hung. But it made it so nice for everyone to come for an event in December and to see the city at its finest. And the architecture, again, really is highlighted with the accent lighting. And this is really fun. We have a river restoration project. We are fortunate to have the Price River just a block over from our Main Street. And USU Eastern is located in Price, and they actually put together a video to attract students to the area to show them how we could recreate. And I'd like to share this video with you. It's about a minute, but it's really quite fun, and it showcases probably about $1 million worth of work where we've pulled out cars and railroad ties and return the river to its natural state. We've recovered an endangered species fish. So it's been good for not only human passage, but also taking care of the environment. And we still have another phase in front of us, which will be our biggest phase coming up. And but this is just so fun. I love to share it with others to see what we have. Oops, I may be stuck. There we go. So yeah, the river work has been really a multi-year project, and we see the river as a key economic driver for part of our future. So it was discovered actually this past year with COVID, and locals actually figured out we had been doing all this work and started jumping in the river, and then they started telling people about it. And we really believe that's going to attract more people to come in, jump in the river, tube, kayak if the water's up, and then to jump out, grab a bite to eat, go check out some galleries, that type of thing. So we're super excited to begin to see that project generate the results that we've been waiting for. We also are looking at Rio Theater, bringing performing arts to our community. So the city owns the Rio Theater. It was an old hotel that had actually burned down. We had saved the facade, created a theater, but the asset was just really wasting. It wasn't doing anything for the community or forward thinking it. So what we've been able to do is we've secured funding. We're improving the sound, we're doing facility upgrades, new lighting, and we're gonna bring performance art into the mix because we know we need a nightlife to move things forward, to keep people busy in the evening, have them have something to do. So this will be basically, you know, concerts, plays, and we'll continue to honor our local events. The Helper Arts Music and Film Festival utilizes the theater. So does the Helper Middle School. But being able to bring that home to the community and have them have a nightlife is just another step towards that sustainable community that we're striving to create. And we're just super proud of what we've been able to do, all the hard work we've accomplished over the last 3 to 4 years. And we absolutely think it's happening in Helper, and we encourage everyone to come down for a day. You'll fall in love and you'll be back to visit.
Thank you so much, Lenise. I love seeing all of those projects, and we've got a lot of kudos flying in. Laurel Cannon Alder said, great to see all of this wonderful work led by wonderful people. Nan Noker said, what a great tagline, where coal meets canvas. I also really enjoyed that. And Monique Bealey mentioned, kudos to Mayor Peterman and the helper community. It's amazing to see everything that is going on in this small rural town that has become a vibrant tourism destination. I think that, I mean, I can't wait to come now. It's almost camp season, isn't it? It's a great place to stop and check out, and that river looks amazing. So it's really impressive work. So thanks so much, Lenise. Kim said, I love helper, and Dan Compton, very impressive. Thanks so much for sharing. So we did have one question come through from Tom Fisher, and he's asking, what roles have Helper City or the county played in all that is going on there? So, you know, how were the roles kind of divvied up?
So it started with, I originally started with chairing a Helper Revitalization Committee. So it's all been very grassroots. The SDAT grant that I referenced at the beginning of the presentation was a grant that I actually wrote on behalf of Helper City, coordinating with city officials. I was not the mayor at that point in time. And then upon delivering the plan, I decided, oh, someone should run the plan. And I thought, I'll try it and see, having never run for elected office. So the city is a key partner in moving forward a lot of the projects, but the community is always the voice. I always tell people, I'm just delivering what you've asked me to do. You've asked me to beautify Main Street. We beautified Main Street. You know, you asked me to take care of the river. I'm taking care of the river. So it's empowering to allow the community to participate in change that will affect them. And people begin to get passionate about certain projects, and I tie those people immediately to that passion. We have a group of river people who go down and water the trees. We have Main Street people who will go down and weed. So it's really, you know, giving them voice, allowing them to participate in the change, and then empowering them to carry through with all of the things that need to happen to make sure that that change is executed and that it sticks.
Nice, thank you. So if others from either participants watching the webinar or even our panelists, if you have questions for Lenise, please feel free to put those in the chat or the Q&A, depending on what's available to you. And I think, Jake, should we bring our roundtable online?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment about Lenise's presentation, something that really stood out to me, particularly as I've kind of followed Helper, but really in the presentation today, is just how inspiring it is, Lenise, that you all have really used your internal resources to build the community. I think so often communities of all sizes look first to raise a bunch of money or compile a bunch of money and then hire outside people to come in and do work. And I think your example of not just how you built Main Street, not even how you designed it, but actually built Main Street, but also the river and so many other projects you referenced. I think, you know, the fact that you're looking at that idea of positive proximity and saying, you know, how do we build this wonderful community with and for our community and with the resources we have. And I think it's just such an inspiring model to community development that I don't think we see happen often enough. And some of that, I think, comes from your willingness to just be scrappy and find creative ways to get work done without maybe the financial resources. I think communities often look at not having the money as a really big hurdle. And it seems like you all have been very creative about that. And I would argue that the end result is stronger because of that scrappiness and that creativity, rather than, you know, if you would have just kind of gone the conventional route of this work. So it's just super inspiring to see. So thanks, Lenise. Yeah, I think we're right at 10 o'clock on the dot. So I think let's invite all of our panelists to turn their cameras and mics back on. And for reference, particularly for those of you attendees who maybe joined us a little bit late, we're doing something a little different with today's session, where this next hour will be a roundtable type discussion with, we've got a total of 12 panelists, representing different arts advocates, artists, government officials, organizations throughout primarily the east side of Summit County. And we're just gonna have kind of an organic conversation about the ideas that were shared, thoughts that folks are having. I have no doubt that we'll be able to roll with this. So it looks like we've got pretty much everybody on here. I have a kind of a quick question that maybe Lenise and Kim can take a stab at first, and then that should kick us off into a larger conversation. But one thing, oh yeah, go ahead.
I might just do introductions first.
Oh yeah, sorry, thanks.
So I do want to thank everyone, all of our roundtable panelists for being here today and taking the time to dig into this conversation. And we're thrilled to announce that we have Tom Fisher, who is our county manager, on the call today. We have Kate Wynn, who is with the Camas Valley History Group, Camas resident. We have Katie Steltplug, who is an artist and the owner of Artique, which is in Camas, an art shop and gallery in Camas. We have Tom Smart with us. He is with Oakley City Council. Dan Compton, who is the director of our Summit County Department of Heritage and Arts. We have Nan Shalat-Noker. She is a Arts Council board member and an arts advocate, even a filmmaker, and makes stop motion animations, which we love. Melina Stevens, who is a county council member and also a liaison to the Arts Council. And it looks like we had Bill Cranstover on here, and it looks like he may have dropped off. Bill Cranstover is an artist, and he has a studio in Peoria, Utah. I'm trying to find his cell phone number. Nan, do you have his cell phone number? Maybe you can shoot him a quick text. Somehow we lost him, but we really want him as an artist in our community to be involved with this conversation. So thanks again for being here. And again, this is a webinar. So for those of you who are participants and listening and watching, just add to the conversation in the Q&A. Normally, this is a big opportunity for everyone to have a roundtable, but we don't want to exclude anyone, so please participate in the conversation through our question and answer, and we'll get through it. So anyways, Jake, please feel free to take it from here.
Wouldn't be Zoom if I didn't forget I was on mute. All right, thanks for doing that, Jocelyn, and reminding me about that. So the question that I just want to start us off with, and then we'll really just let this go organically. And I was thinking maybe Kim and Lenise, you can just take a quick touch at this and then we can move from there. But I think one of the really interesting parts of rural communities particularly, and as we think about arts and culture in those communities, is finding this balance between kind of like evolution and growth that these communities are often going through, and then retaining that strong and authentic identity, that idea of almost like that placemaking versus placekeeping conversation we were getting into, this balance between, you know, some of the economic realities that exist in different ways in different rural communities, paired with this kind of desire to not want to change too much, right? And want to be able to retain some of what makes these places special. So I'm just curious to hear you all really talk a little bit about, you know, that balance between growth and evolution and retaining that authentic identity, and what role arts and culture maybe plays in that. And then that should launch us into a great conversation, I think.
Lenise, do you want to talk first?
Sure. Well, I see history as one of our key attributes here in Helper because it is so unique in that the model of the community itself, it was built along the way of the river. So we have a curvy main street. It's not a traditional gridded kind of community. And the call out to the history is now very evident in the artist community, who are very cognizant of valuing what that is. You saw that in the mural, the 27 diverse colors or crayons that's a direct call out to the languages, the train on the crayon box. That's our railroading history. So I think as long as leadership is cognizant and keeps that in line, I feel like our community would bring things to a screaming halt if we were to ignore or degrade the history of Helper. I think any of the changes we would be working towards probably would not go forward, because resistance can be a real thing in a rural community, and you have to move those people, you have to move that needle and get them on your page. And again, big shout out to Laurel. It's all about change methodology and allowing them voice. And I have always said, we will honor who we have been. We can't be ashamed of our coal mining history. It's who we have been in this area, but let's maximize it. Let's talk about it as the value that it was at the point in time in which it was needed across the country, so don't degrade that, and bring people forward through incorporating them and letting them have that voice.
I guess I would just add, and I agree 100%, Lenise. There can be a lot of divisiveness when there's new ideas, and I think it's absolutely critical to start with who you are, where you are, what came before, but new voices have to be accepted and be at the table. And I think more often than not, arts are being invited to the table, artists in terms of planning or ideas, and going in with a sense of openness to join people together. I think growth is inevitable, but I think it's up to each community to decide what that growth looks like, and what maybe there are opportunities and limitations that at least you can discuss. So being open-minded at the get-go and having everybody at the table, I think is absolutely critical. Never ignoring the history, but being open to the joys of what the creative input can bring is always helpful too.
Thanks, Kim. Katie and Kate, I know that Camas City went through a 2020 vision process, and arts and culture was brought up as maybe a revitalization tool for downtown Main Street. I know also that happened right before COVID hit. I'm wondering if you two can talk a little bit about that process and maybe your hopes and dreams, because I think you both served on a committee for that visioning process, and talk a little bit more about what you saw come out of that process, and maybe what you hope to see come to fruition in the future as it relates to arts and culture in Camas.
Katie, do you want to start, because you were in on it earlier than me?
What's that? You want me to start?
You were in on it earlier than I was, so you start.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, we did. We went through the same process that Helper did, and it was amazing. That was last November. And I think we had some real start. We had some visioning processes that we went through, and community discussions and feedback from the community. And then COVID hit. But Kate, I think, has been very involved. And I think starting with the history is very important. And I think, being in a rural community, and I've been here as a small art co-op for, it'll be 10 years in June. It's the pushback from the government and the council and the community, and being a new voice, it's hard to be a newbie. So I think that's where my struggle has always been, but I think that I've also created my own little niche that I've really loved to see grow. But I think I'm very inspired by Helper, and I've wanted to go for a long time, and I think we could have that really here. And And I know Kate's been really working hard with the community, with the history group. So I might pass it on to Kate.
Yeah, it was, honestly, the timing could not have been worse. We were so motivated, and we had, I think it was 6 committees all taking on different aspects of what we felt needed to be done. And then we couldn't even meet. So it was quite a challenge. The groups that survived are the history group. We got some really dynamic and motivated volunteers. And that I am just in awe of what we have managed to achieve. We did a yard sale and we raised almost $1,000, which we then spent to buy this really beat up trailer, which is going to be a museum. And in order to pay for it, we made a calendar. Over the course of about 6 weeks, we got pictures, we gathered histories, we printed these calendars, we made $2,000. And not just that, but it got people talking about history. We had them on sale in various places, and you would get people coming in and going, oh wow, we had an opera house? I never knew that. It's got people motivated. And the thing though is, this is my issue, most of the push has come from the newcomers, the returnees, the people who've moved in, whereas the locals are a bit less proactive. They're very happy to help once the thing is up and running, but the ideas are coming from Katie, from me, from the people in the history group. It's a bit more of a challenge to get the whole community involved. So if anyone has any ideas of how to get everyone motivated, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, Lenise, I wonder if you have any insights to that, because it sounds like you had put together a helper revitalization committee. Maybe talk about the genesis of that and how it manifested into a successful and productive committee.
Sure. I was just responding to Anita about what we did. So what we started with was a revitalization committee, and then we broke out into committees from there. Like Kate was referencing, we had a history committee, we had a plant committee, we had a lighting committee, we had a social media. So we built into our committees how we would communicate to the community. So we had a social media / website. We generated a website. And then we also had a knock on doors committee, because a lot of our constituents are older, and I'm like, not the whole world is not on Facebook as much as you all want to believe it. And we would literally knock on doors or put flyers on homes and say, hey, we're meeting Thursday. We're going to talk about the Main Street design. You know, it's going to be here. Come if you can. And as is pretty typical, people migrate to what they're passionate about. Like I referenced a little earlier, you had a group of people who were really into the river, had a group of people really into this, you know, Main Street. We had a group of people really into the history, and we just maximized what they were passionate about to feed into the overall objectives we were trying to achieve. So, you know, definitely put together committees. I mean, we had meeting minutes, we took attendance, we issued calls for volunteers, you know, what are you interested in? And just kind of, you know, ran with it from there and just pulled people in based on what they wanted to do and how much they felt they could contribute.
Thanks, Lenise. And Kim, you were putting some really nice insights into the chat. Do you want to expand on those?
Sure. I mean, I mean, the coffee shops, the churches, the schools, asking an elder to share their story. The photos, I think, are such a great idea, especially if they're historic and you have an elder in the community who may know the story and you can go and talk to them. I don't think any of those are new ideas, but I think the relationships are key. They have to be maintained. But I also think people are scared of change, and sometimes they just back off. And I think it's more about framing the projects that you're doing in the bigger container of the community coming together. Oh, and by the way, we're doing this calendar, and oh, by the way, we're collecting this information, whatever. But I think it's more about, it's their home. It's their home.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious to hear from also Nan and maybe Bill and Tom Smart on how you view arts and culture and heritage and arts, specifically history in Oakley and Peoa, and how that maybe influences how people think about arts and culture in your community.
I was waiting for our.
You are on mute, just so you know. You're gonna.
You know, I was on the Summit County Historical Society when it was first convened a long time ago. And there's a great book. Also, I'm not sure what the status is of the county museum right now, but history, I see history potentially as a way to kind of heal some of the political divisiveness in our culture right now. I think Katie has been a hero in Camas to, in that environment, have little Friday night campfires and open a new art show. And that's something that, you know, in other communities might be kind of happening all the time. But Katie's been a pioneer in that, and it's been bringing some, you know, different diverse people together on Camas Main Street. We just need more.
Hi.
Do you have other thoughts?
Anthem.
Well, we had a couple of videos made. You know, a lot of our community centers around the rodeo because it's so historical and stuff like that. And a couple of years ago, we had you know, it was from the rodeo channel, but they brought in a big, you know, small production crew who did a very nice historical view of Oakley, and they centered around the rodeo, but it was actually a lot more broad than that. And we felt that that was a really great thing to encapsulate, especially we've got a couple of older gentlemen who've been like the standards of Oakley, Gerald Young and Ken Wilson Hume and stuff. And it was a great historical thing, which we haven't made full use of getting that out there, but we will soon. And so the history's been really important, and we've got a city councilor, Joe Frazier, who's been very good about keeping that, and we've tried to incorporate that into our website and everything. And, you know, our city, in my opinion, the most interesting thing is that in like 2007, they did a study about revitalizing downtown and having an area that's a village, a true village center. And that's come under attack a few times with people wanting to put a bowling alley there or a garage for storage. But I think that in the next few years, we're trying to have a real great city center. And what we found is that we know that we're not going to have the amount of people through our rural area, and we don't particularly want to have that, but we can have an artist community there. And we had a pretty extensive study where we went to Rifle, Colorado, and a few small towns, and had a design. Jack Johnson designed a city center that had art studios that you could have it because you could have living quarters above it for artists and things like that. And I think it's got a lot of potential, and I think it's just a matter of protecting the blank slate that we have and not screwing it up, I think is maybe the most important thing right now. But I think eventually, I'm actually pretty excited about our community, and our, you know, Katie's done a great job in Camas over that and bringing people together. But if you don't respect the history and the culture and the old school, you're in big trouble where we're from. I think we all know that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, Tom. And I mean, what resonates with me is what Lenise was talking about. You know, you have to be careful and to make sure that you're being community oriented and informed by the community, but you're also being really intentional. And something that Lenise talked about was not being reactionary, but being thinking forward and looking at future opportunities and how to, develop your communities, but kind of from within and really purposeful. Bill, as a local artist in Peoa, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with I like Lenise's the artist and the students and the combination. I think that's such a wonderful way to start a fire. And there's so many old buildings and places for studios and people to do their art, and even in PO we have so many mink facilities, mink sheds, and it would be wonderful just to get creative people out there and do ceramics, and I think making Oakley and Camas in PO all just one kind of community and share the vision, because we're neighbors, or right down the road, we're connected. I think that's real necessary too. So I think the impetus again for the arts is to have the arts in the community and have the people come to the arts and have the community participate. It's real necessary. Katie's done a wonderful job. Everybody's doing a great job, but participation is key.
Yeah, I mean, something at the Arts Council that we always say is art connects us, and using it as this conduit to weave together the communities of Camas and PO.
Yes.
And Samak. I mean, I feel like it already does so in a little bit, but it's maybe not intentional. And I think that's something that we could build upon. And it's another thing that I resonated with me in a presentation. I think it was Lenise talking about building bridges through projects and getting community involved. And I really loved that idea, because there's opportunity for ownership and pride, and using arts as this tool for connection.
The projects are necessary, and I think if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And again, you need somebody to ignite the spark, and then keep the fire going. But I love I love the artists being in the community and bringing students and doing workshops, and that's really motivating for people.
I was wondering if Kim and Lenise I know about the art festival in Helper, but are there little events that work? I love the coffee with councils that have been done, and the locally market that was in Oakley. That had some traction and was attracting a variety of people and highlighting local artisans, as well as a wonderful potter from Helper used to come down to that. I wonder if there's some examples of some small organic events.
In North Dakota, in a lot of the rural communities, what brings people together will be church, and then the lunch that everyone has together after church, whether it's at outdoors or at the coffee shop, bringing artisans to share music, workshops for kids, utilizing artists in the community to go into the schools, to show up to be on the agenda at a town meeting where sometimes leadership doesn't even know who lives in their community, so that you do kind of presentations about who lives there and how we can help. But I think you guys, I mean, farmers markets are always good, always. And anytime there's a holiday, making sure artists are involved in the creation of or the planning of, and that there's art making or music playing. I think it's probably what you're doing. Maybe trying it on a bigger scale. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I want to, we do have county representatives here with us. We have Dan and Tom and Melina, and I'm curious of your perspectives, in thinking about how I think what we've all been discussing is kind of arts being, it's kindling, right? It's kindling for bringing communities together. It's kindling for our local economies, with small events, big events, programming, public art. And so I'm curious on your thoughts from a county level on how you look at arts and culture, broadly with council or with staff, and just how you might I think you've been using arts and culture more and more. The fair has become, this really rooting cultural event in Colville. We have, I think there's a lot there, and I'm curious how you guys perceive arts and culture, and maybe will perceive it in future.
Elena, do you mind if I start?
Please do.
All right. I really appreciate Kim and Lenise's presentations because it really talked about, kind of the grassroots aspect of this. And I've grown to have such an appreciation for each of the communities, not just our incorporated cities, but, the Snyderville Basin, the Pioas, the Hoytsvilles, all those places that are actual places in our community and have identity. And we run into the problem in the county that we can't represent any of them well because we're not them. We represent the whole county. And when we try to promote arts and culture in one way, we get accused of, well, you're doing it the Park City way, or you're doing it the North Summit way, or you're doing it the South Summit way. And so that's where we really struggle. And I know Nan brought up the history, the history and heritage committee and the museum, and we struggle in the same way with those because they tend to get segmented, and we end up not representing anything really well. But what we do well is we can be a convener. We definitely can be a funder because we have resources available, and we have passion. I mean, we have plenty of people that are both, that work for our organization or have been associated with it, or that want us to have some type of leadership role, that we need to be involved in it at the right place at the right time. But I really believe that grassroots effort needs to come to the county and say, this is what we need you to do. And this is how we need you to be involved. But let me take it then from another angle, which is that whole economic development piece that I really appreciate Kim talking about. Because I think there's a way that each of our communities can use these grassroots efforts to really spark things within their community. And Lenise has been part of that leadership that's done that in Helper, and each of our communities could do that, and we're starting to see some of the sparks of that outside of the the greater Park City area, which has been down that road for quite a long time. The county is here to support and be part of that where we can and where we can be the most useful. I haven't met Kate personally yet, but she's on my list, and I've got her email now, so I'm going to be doing that. I'll give an example of the struggle that we go through is that our RAP tax, which we just renewed, and all of the folks here were part of that, has a culture component. Half of it goes to culture in our community. We have one nonprofit on the east side of the county, or the rural side of our county, that can receive these funds. So we need to figure out as a community how to build the organization, the grassroots organization, around being able to diversify that funding out into the community to support what these communities want to do. And so that's kind of my pitch.
Well, and Kate, you guys are maybe, fingers crossed, applying for your 501c3 status, yes?
Yep. We signed the paperwork last week, so.
That is a journey. It's a journey, and it takes
Oh yeah.
worth it. And we're so excited to see that realized, and you know, there's, and having it come from this place of passion and grassroots. I really appreciate that, Tom. And something that Kim said in response to you, Tom, you know, how the bigger story is told to communities from the larger government structure is key. Listening, convening, funding, passion. Yes, Tom. So that's Kim. Yeah, I think that's great. And I mean, we've seen increased investment on the county level. I mean, COVID was a hard year, but in public art specifically, and Dan Compton is liaison to our public art board. And maybe I'm curious, Dan, I mean, what I love seeing happening is we're considering maybe a project out in Hoytsville, which is really right next to Colville, and you know, to make sure that we're putting public art that the Hoytsville community would want. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit more about? I mean, we're just gonna go travel to Hoytsville and hang out with some of the community members and talk. And do you want to talk about how we you know, came to that approach?
Sure. Thanks for having me, and this has been a great discussion. I really appreciate it. We're just getting started. We had the idea of maybe an artwork possibility with the new Hoytsville Bridge and tunnel. That's kind of a blank canvas out there, but we thought instead of just doing what we want, we need to really get out there and talk to the community and see if that's even something they would be interested in and helping with, and what their ideas are. And so we just have set up a meeting for next week to start this conversation. So I'm really looking forward to it. And just having this discussion today has really inspired me and given me a lot to process and think about. And I think we're on the right track, at least to get these conversations started. I would also just want to put a plug in for the Public Art Board. It's made up of representatives from all over the county. And they can be a voice back to the county. So please keep them in mind. You're welcome to attend their meetings if you have something exciting coming up that you want them to be aware of. We should also try to attend your meetings when you're having them. So please, let's try to keep this communication open and all be involved together, because I think we're a lot more powerful when we work together.
Thanks, Dan. We have a great question here from Laurel Cannon Alder. Lenise, I'm aware that this was a line upon line building, and you have referenced the early days of knocking on doors and personal invitations. I'm wondering if you might be willing to share some of the resistance that you encountered in the early days of your work, not only with getting the community members engaged, but also with how you had to navigate different visions for what the right path was.
So Laurel actually went through some of this journey with me. So she's aware at the beginning of specifically the Main Street design endeavor. There were definitely opinions and different viewpoints that had to be navigated, and people contributed design elements, and in one case a group kind of consolidated and took elements of each one of their designs to build what we pretty much have today. And then there was another design that really held strong to its tenets, and that was completely acceptable. I mean, it actually gave the community a chance to see different ways of looking at Main Street. What we did was we empowered the community and had them vote on it, and just said, I'm happy to deliver whatever you think fits the community. Is it design 1 or design 2? So allowing that to occur and giving the community options, you know, it's hard to combat resistance if it doesn't have a voice. So we gave it a voice, and we let it play out, and then we were able to say, okay, now we've executed this, we've determined that this is the correct design, so we'll begin to move forward on this effort, because we allowed it to play completely out, which, you know, rendered really a great result for all of us. And I think, you know, to date, the parties who had a competing design, I guess, for lack of a better word, have embraced what we've been able to do on Main Street and appreciate the beauty of it.
I would just add, I think there's always going to be naysayers or the people who say, well, you didn't ask me. And of course you probably did early on or included them in some conversation. They're not, you can't make everybody happy all the time. But I think if there's a vision of our community for the greater good that we are all a part of, we live here too. And I just want to go back to something that Tom said. I think it's critical for the political structures, the governing structures, the higher structures that have the money that kind of direct traffic, to be as open as possible to shifting how they do things. And it slows the process down in many ways, because you're having to incorporate so many other voices, but the projects are usually then far more successful, far more embedded in that community.
Thanks, Kim. And I did want to go back. I noticed in the chat you mentioned something after Kate spoke about going to 501c3 status. You mentioned how important it is to have community groups doing fiscal sponsorship and not to form a 501c3 ready. And I just want to take this opportunity to let everyone know that the Arts Council does provide fiscal sponsorship opportunities. We have fiscally sponsored and passed the Public Art Board and the Latino Arts Festival put on in partnership with the Christian Center. And so, and we've applied for projects here and there, but so this is a program that we are formalizing, making more robust. There's going to be an application process, hopefully in future on our website very soon. And we're going to support Kate in her endeavors to apply for funding in the short term until they are like really, you know, ready and ready to have their own staff to do their own fundraising. So that is a service that we provide. So if you're listening, just please know that. Because yeah, I mean, these projects energize us so much. We know that there's huge community benefit. It's absolutely in alignment with our mission as an Arts Council to support these grassroots projects that that really help formulate these identities in community and heritage, all that good stuff.
And I would just add to that, just to, you know, again, as a state funder, oh my gosh, we've got more bureaucracy than you can even imagine. And we have forced our funders to look at how we're giving out the money differently so that, again, we can be more of a partner and not necessarily scare people off with all the rules and regulations or put them under with that.
Thanks, Kim. We have a question from Nan. Kate and Katie, does the Camas visioning plan include all of Summit County or all of Summit or just Camas? Yeah. Oh, all of South Summit or just Camas?
The history group is Camas Valley history, so we do all 6 towns. The RUDAP led project that Katie referred to was specifically focusing on Camas, but I'm of the opinion that we get the whole valley involved as much as possible because the history is the whole valley, it's not just Camas. So.
On that point, I had a really nice conversation with Anita Lewis, who I think has been listening in a little bit, a couple of weeks ago, but just about the various kind of communities throughout Summit County and the interconnectivity of those and the unique identities that each have. But it really reminded me, Kim, of some of the work that you're doing, both through the I think you call it the Art on the Prairie now, but the creative placemaking project that unites the 8 regions, but also the mural project that you talked about with each of the kind of this ribbon of communities that are each doing their own project. And I could see something like that being really successful throughout Summit County, where there's a common project, a common initiative, but each individual community kind of takes their own spin on it, right? So whether that's a unique mural in each community, but it's done as one comprehensive project, right? Working with, through some of the same structures and infrastructures, but each community gets to take their own representation of what that looks like. So and I think this balance, particularly in Summit County, of how does each town and place hold on to that own identity that makes it really special, but utilize the neighbors to kind of have a little bit of a more robust infrastructure, but also, you know, as visitors say come in to check out one thing, how do they then move through the different communities and experience all that's there? Because it really is such a wonderful, you know, kind of journey experiencing each one of the individual communities as part of a larger whole. And I think arts and culture has some amazing capabilities in terms of building some of those bridges. So Kim, I love both of those examples where you're allowing each place to retain its own identity, but you're also kind of breaking down some of those barriers that exist between them.
Yeah, and I will say that the mural project up in the Northeast corridor, all the communities joined together and said, we need more visitorship, but we don't want to necessarily have people moving here. But we want people to come and drive through and see what we have that's so special. And they actually have been able to get more funding by joining together as 7 communities across 3 counties in that one region than they ever would have had on their own. And they're really celebrating what is so special about each of those communities, but they're working together.
Well, and Kim, that seems so critical, that the working together to retain the identity and this idea of really marrying history with art and culture just seems so critical, especially in these rural communities, because we have to articulate and know how do we define these communities, and really not how do we define them, how do these communities define themselves, so that we can help honor that through history. And I love this conversation for that fact that as we get to know these communities and understand more so than as a county, then we can, you know, put resources and help support, like with the Camas historical moving museum. That's really exciting. What are some really creative, unique ways that we can continue to marry those ideas and retain the sense of place that these communities have worked so long to create themselves?
Yeah, thanks, Melina. I mean, and Tom touched a little bit on this as well, but I mean, we are a community of contrasts, because as a county, you know, the Park City is very different from Colville, and their needs are different. The way that they might receive arts and culture is different, and that's something that I've been learning and trying to listen really delicately since we've joined the Arts Council. But you know, there is this perception that maybe art is only for Park City, but that's a very specific and siloed approach to thinking about art, and broadening it to this heritage arts history conversation, I think, is where we have success in utilizing art as this community builder and tool. And I think it's just the way you handle it and the way you treat it differently in different communities based on their feedback and based on their wants. But really, it's just bringing their own culture to light and highlighting what makes their sense of place special. And so communicating that and making sure that we have the right people in the room to help foster change, and maybe change is the wrong word, because some people don't like change, but to foster forward thinking and figuring out how that community can stay connected. It's been a listening journey for me personally, and that's why I think I really enjoy this conversation and value it. Momentum. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, and stability. Any other thoughts from the group? And the one I'm really wishing we had someone from Francis here. I did reach out to their city council, but most of them are busy. But maybe in a future meeting. Tom, did you have something to?
Yeah, I just have one thing to point out. You know, we had I think there were people involved in the silly market who came in and helped in Oakley, and we had, you know, fairs. I don't know if we had 4 or 5 of them on Saturdays or something. We had music, and we had a lot of artists doing things, and it was really nice. I don't think that there was anybody who didn't enjoy that. But I think that the neighborhood, the citizens didn't realize that the way that that was set up was Oakley ended up paying several $1,000s in order to have that there. And I think that there's a good argument that it was well worth money spent. But honestly, to most of the people in the government, they said, wait, we just spent thousands of dollars so that people could come in and sell their stuff. Why can't we just have them come sell their stuff for free and have music and have that they felt it shouldn't have cost the city that much in order to make that available. And I'm just throwing that out because a lot of people say, well, why did you stop it and everything? And I'm just pointing out, I think that there's money in mountain towns music, and there's a lot of things. And I think, you know, the music element that brings our community together has really been phenomenal. And we can, somehow I think we could maybe marry art and music a little bit more together. And I hope that if that gets another chance to do that, we can figure out a way to do that without it costing the small community that much money. I mean, we have a lot of great facilities that we can make, you know, open to the Arts Council or whatever. But I'm just pointing out one of the things, and I think that it maybe in the long run took us backwards just a little bit because of that. I'm just pointing that out.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I mean,
that's one of the problems.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's exactly one of the problems that we're having. We want to do a launch with music for the museum, and you know, you need a sound system. You need artists who are giving up their livelihoods for a couple of hours to come and perform, and you know, funding it is a challenge, definitely.
And I'm not suggesting that we don't pay musical artists. I think we should, and you know, whether it's donations or whatever, I think that, but it was a bigger number than that. And we have musical artists coming and playing around our community that is supported through the arts and rap tax and mountain town music anyway. And I'm just thinking there might be a way to marry it. I mean, the idea of community and gathering right now, I think is needed more than at any time I've ever seen. And I think that it's a ripe time to really figure out how can we bring our communities together now, and at the same time promote art and music and all of those things. I think that they're all very connected. And I just saying that I think we missed a little opportunity there. I think if that would have kept going, they would have said, oh, because things grow. I mean, at Mountain Town Music, you go there and there weren't very many people. And then pretty soon after a year or two, you go, wait a minute, everybody's coming to this place because they see it so cool. And this sense of belonging community is so important right now that I think there's a real opportunity there. And I think, you know, there's a certain amount of finances that small towns should probably commit to it, but I just think the seed money for it and everything. And I think the county's been really generous, and with the RAP taxes, I think that those are ways that we can probably do a better job with that.
We have a wonderful community event in Peoa. It's called Yurt Fest, and it's once a year, and there's hundreds and hundreds of people that, hundreds of people, but it's all community based, and it's all community contributions from the community. And it's something that everybody looks forward to in Peoa, of course, along with the rodeo and everything else. Those are community sponsored events, but everybody brings something to the table, which in itself is really rewarding to see. And you know, again, with contributions from RAP tax and everything else, that would be a great boon and just a little more sugar on the pudding. You know, I mean, it would be great to have some money. But paying artists and everything, the Yurt Fest is a jam fest. Everybody comes and does their own thing, and it's exposure for them. So it's a wonderful way for the musicians, the local musicians, to get exposure instead of actually paying them.
Well,
But,
Kim,
you
you
know,
brought up something about funding too, talking about balance. Do you want to expand on that?
I feel like with smaller communities in particular, there may be less resources, which is usually the case.
yes.
But I think everybody can bring something to the table. So whether it's the electric cord that they have in their garage, or the wood or the pallets to help create a fence or a stage or a raised area, tables and chairs. I mean, I think Lenise probably there's a lot of, you know, resources that people have that they can bring to the table. It's not necessarily always money, but I will say that there is more money out there than we think there is. And it's about making sure that we're not only looking for arts funding, but economic development funding, tourism funding, commerce funding, business funding, and that the arts are a part of that. That's about how we build healthy, creative communities, healthy, vibrant communities. You know, I think the wrap tax is great, but again, it's about how do you get the money to the right person with following the right business guidelines, et cetera. But there is money out there, but I think it starts in the community about what can people bring to the table. Then you know what you're missing too.
Right.
I kind of wanted to comment because I was part of the local market. I was a vendor, and I think it was a great event, and it was well attended, and it was the whole summer. And I think, you know, I know Camas has talked about doing a farmer's market, and I think there's great opportunities there. And I don't know whether the Arts Council or if the county can help fund it a little bit, because it's not even just about, I mean, it takes organization. The Tour of Utah little market that we did during the Tour of Utah was not just a show up free for all. It can't just be a pop up. You know what I mean? It needs to be organized. As we all know, as being a vendor at something like that, it needs to be organized. And so I think that's where the funding came in, is I mean, I'm not sure what all the funding was for with the silly market. They were obviously the planners in it. But I think that there's ideas here, and I think it could happen again in the Camas Valley. I think it would be a great thing, a great asset to do, you know, a Saturday morning farmers market with arts and music and, you know, bringing the community together. Or I don't know where that location is, but.
Right.
I think consistency is necessary also.
Yeah.
No matter what event you do,
Yeah.
whether it's farmers market, music, or anything else, I think it's the consistency. People tend to forget, and as a result, you know, if you're, it needs to be promoted and done on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, well, and that draws on something that Tom Smart touched on. You know, I mean, the concerts in Oakley and Peoa started
Exactly.
small, but then gained momentum because they were consistent, and people
Yep.
started to gather there, and it became this community favorite. And then going back to your point, Katie and Tom, about the Oakley locally silly market, you know, I mean, I think it's hard, right? Because I mean, putting on an event is labor intensive, and to have the facilitation and the expertise to be able to pull that off, you know, I think Park Silly Market, in my opinion, was probably the right person to get that started. And Nan put a nice comment in the chat, just mentioning, you know, at least there's so much value, even if that locally market wasn't continued, there's so much value in knowing that experiment. It shows that, you know, a farmer's market in Oakley, an art market in Oakley does work. The community likes it. So, you know, there's this proof of concept that you can build on. And if, you know, and let's get, you know, creative with funding and resources, internal resources, like what Helper did. You know, what volunteer mechanisms can you use to, you know, that ends up helping produce community buy-in and pride. Nan mentions, and Nan, feel free to just jump in here, what about something to help revive the Camas Theater? Not necessarily for movies, but small local events, history talks. We have been talking about that theater for so long. I want that so badly. We'll get there, maybe.
Is it for sale?
Still?
Well, box.
I don't know the details. Nan, do you on the? I know it was for sale.
It is.
I'm trying to. Is it still? The owner I think, wants to sell but doesn't want to let go, and but it's a ready-made, historic, kind of. Sundance used to show a movie there. every now and then. And
Yeah.
I think there's a digital projector that Camas City is saving or holding for it because it was a part of our rural grant, the funding for that fancy, digital projector.
Yeah. Well, and we're seeing, I mean, Lenise having that theater revitalized in Helper and bringing performing arts and movies and youth, productions to that theater. And yeah, I mean, you just talked about basic nightlife. That is of huge value to a community, and lends to Main Street revitalization and vibrancy. And yeah.
So I often write grants on behalf of the city for that type of thing, and that's basically how we are funding the Rio was 3 different grant opportunities, and then secured a donation, and the city did that. So Camas could absolutely go out and get money to make things happen if that's something the city would like to do.
I don't know if the city wants to do anything with it.
Oh,
we just have to have those conversations. Well,
yeah.
We'll get the right people in the room.
That's where the knocking on the doors come in.
I know. The knocking on the doors committee. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we are nearing the end of our session here. We're about 3 minutes to 11. Any parting thoughts before we end our meeting today?
These sessions have been so inspiring, and some of the other communities who've already found a way to be successful with the things that we would love to see. It's so generous of you to share your expertise. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, and I know Kim has to jump off to a 12. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. And we have recorded this session. So we'll make sure to share it with you all. We'll put it on our Facebook page so that you can also share it with people that you might think are interested, but couldn't maybe attend. But yeah, we can't extend our gratitude enough to Lenise and Kim for sharing their insights from their communities. Love the work that you guys are doing, and hopefully we can maybe be there in person, both in North Dakota and Helper sometime soon in the future.
And I just want to say, this is great that you're talking. The communication is key. You're listening to each other. You're across city, county lines. Just keep it up. Things will happen.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we will wrap it up. Thank you all so much for joining us, and stay safe out there. Enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend, and we will keep on keeping with our arts and culture initiatives here. And we appreciate all of your insights, and we'll maintain momentum with this conversation. Absolutely.
Thank you.
One quick note for everybody as folks drop off. I'm going to send a quick little survey to everybody that registered today. So just keep an eye out for that. It's a very quick little questionnaire, Google form, just to help us think about these events in the future, topic ideas you have, feedback, whatever. So just keep an eye out for that. But thank you all so much for being here.
And also thank you to Jocelyn and Jake for organizing. We learned about the importance of organization today when it comes to arts and culture, and thanks for taking the charge on that. It's a big job, and this was a fantastic event.
Thanks, Melina. We're happy to do it. We like doing it. All right. Well, so nice to see everyone. Thanks to the attendees for listening in. Again, we'll send out a short survey like Jake noted, and even if you were an attendee and couldn't participate in the conversation, we're happy to continue this conversation with you post meeting. So anyways, we'll all sign off. Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll see you all soon.